Hi everybody, this is John Mark. Our focus this week is on integrating reading and writing. And I know that in previous weeks, the importance of using reading in the language lesson, in the writing lesson, has been pretty obvious. When it comes to, for example, creating writing tasks, very often the input that we use for the task, whether it can be realia or a photograph or a video, very often is a piece of text. And when it comes to academic writing, I think the reasons are clear that for an academic setting to be authentic, it certainly must include both reading and writing together. And so that's why I thought that this week's topic was of extreme importance, because reading skills are quite unique. And as language teachers, we can make ourselves aware of these skills, and then we can help our learners to notice them and to internalize them and to make them their own, and then use them in conjunction with the writing skills that we're also helping them to develop. So it's actually quite complicated for our learners to combine these skills. Even if they were doing it in their native language, it would still be a challenge. And so I don't want to underestimate how difficult this can be for learners, which underlines the importance of our role as strategy builders in this process. And so that's why I've chosen a certain type of writing that very explicitly involves reading skills, and that is the creation of summaries, which of course means that you take a piece of writing or more than one piece of writing and you condense them using paraphrases into a smaller piece of writing of your own creation. And when my students ask me, why am I writing a summary? What's the purpose of writing a summary? I tell them that a summary is a uniquely academic type of writing that practices a multitude of language skills. But in an academic setting, the summary is invaluable. And in many professional settings, a summary is extremely useful as well. And the summary is written for somebody who did not read the original. And so if we can try and imagine what kind of reader that is, in addition to a professor, or in addition to a professional reading a journal and wants an abstract of an article before he reads the actual one, or a supervisor who wants a condensation of several different sources to read before a meeting, we can see that both academically and professionally this skill is pretty useful. So here's what I want to start with. I want you to think about these questions. How do you define reading? Because depending on who we are and what kind of reading we have to do, what kind of reading we choose to do or enjoy doing, all of these affect how we define reading itself. And I want you to think about your definition. What does reading mean to you? Because this will certainly play a role in determining how you approach the development of reading skills in the classroom. And what kind of reading do you do most often? Do you enjoy reading fiction, or do you read basically the news or nonfiction? Do you like reading mysteries, or do you solely read literature? Is there a certain time period of literature that you enjoy the most? Or is there a certain group of people that you enjoy reading? And when it comes to giving reading assignments in the classroom, I'm curious how much you enjoy giving students reading assignments. Personally, I enjoy it quite a bit, although it can be certainly a challenge, because you have to know your students, you have to know their goals and their strengths and their learning styles. And certainly in previous weeks we've looked at ways to explore and establish that with such things as needs and means analyses. But I enjoy giving my students reading assignments, primarily because I find that I learn a great deal from them throughout this process. I enjoy reading myself, but sometimes I learn about a text, something that I hadn't known before, or I gain a perspective that I would not have gotten if I hadn't given a text to a student to read and then discussed it in class with them. So I find that it's a wonderful learning process for me, which is one reason why I became a teacher, because I enjoy the learning process. Linguistic process, meaning that obviously this kind of also goes without saying, but that if we don't understand the language or the grammar, or we can't read the alphabet, certainly we can't read. I mean, it's pretty obvious, but we need to state it because it's true. If we try to read something, no matter how many reading skills we have, if we can't understand the alphabet, we'll never be able to read it. So I want you to ask yourself this question. What are the skills of a good reader? What does a good reader do before he reads, while he reads, and after he reads, in order to make the experience more rewarding? And we're going to look at these in detail, but I want you to think about it before we do. And a lot of these are strategies that the reading teacher can model in the classroom and expose learners to, and ask learners to practice and develop on their own. And these strategies, just like with riding a bicycle, will eventually become internalized skills. So let's look at first pre-reading. And here's an example activity. And what we have here is the headline from a newspaper article from the Washington Post, and a photograph from that article, and then a caption underneath the photograph. And what you can do is ask your students, based on what you see here, the headline, the photograph, and the caption, what do you expect this article to be about? And making a prediction about a text is an extremely valuable pre-reading skill, because by making successful predictions about a text, you can choose texts more successfully. In other words, you might be able to choose something that you would enjoy with greater skill, which of course increases how much you read, increases your confidence in reading. But also, making predictions about a text helps to, if you do it successfully, generate your background knowledge related to the topic, which will make the reading process easier and more rewarding. And so one thing that an effective reader does, for example, when looking at a newspaper, when you begin to read a newspaper, you don't start at the top of page 1, read to the bottom of page 1, and then go to page 2 and do the same thing. That's not how we read a newspaper. We read a newspaper by scanning the page, looking for things that might be interesting to us. And one way of doing that is just by looking at the headline, or looking at the pictures, or looking at the caption. And so you can ask your learners, when you look at this, what do you expect to see? So, in addition, skills of pre-reading that we can practice in classroom, we can expose learners to in the classroom. For example, are activating background knowledge, like with the previous activity. Ask students why they are reading. Make sure that in every reading assignment, learners know the purpose of what they're reading, why they're doing it in the first place. And it may be just because my teacher told me to, or it may be because I'm trying to develop my English skills. But if we're lucky, it may be, well, in my other class I'm studying biology, and so by reading this biology text I will be better prepared for my other class. Making predictions about the text, like in the previous activity, like I discussed. Selecting appropriate text. You know, if you're standing at a bookstore and you see a wall of books, what does the effective reader do in choosing the right text? You know, do you look at the inside page? Do you read only the front and the back of the book? Do you read the author's bio only? Are you daring and do you open the book and read the last page like I know some people do? Skimming for the main idea is a pre-reading skill. Certainly with academic texts, this is something that is extremely useful because very often if the text is of an academic nature, reading it once is not really enough. And so the effective reader of academic writing will skim very quickly for the main idea and then will scan for important details such as important vocabulary words, and then we'll read it closely. And all of these things we can practice in the classroom. Now, when it comes to while we read, there are certain things that learners do, that effective readers do, to enhance the reading process while they are reading. And here are 2 paragraphs from this article. And what I would do is I would ask my learners, okay, read these 2 paragraphs. And while you're reading them, I want you to first decide what is the relationship between paragraph 1 and paragraph 2. What roles do they play that are different? How are they related to each other? And then I would ask my learners to look for important words. What are the important vocabulary words in the text? And then you can ask them perhaps, is there one sentence that you can remove without changing the main idea? So what I want to do, I'm sure you're curious, I want to do this activity out loud. So I'm going to read it as if I were employing these 3 in-reading skills. Metro, by the way, Metro is the name of the subway system in Washington, D.C. It's like the official name. Metro stepped up security Monday in the wake of the Moscow subway bombings, sending transit police and bomb-sniffing dogs on random sweeps through rail stations and yards and conducting high-visibility patrols. Reading that, I see that they introduce an idea, they step up security, and then give an example. They stepped up security by using police and dogs, using random sweeps, high-visibility patrols. Important words are bombing, bomb-sniffing dogs, patrols. And the next paragraph. The federal government did not immediately make any recommendations for increased security in mass transit systems, a U.S. official said. The official spoke on condition of anonymity to discuss internal deliberations. Well, security is an important word here, and mass transit system is important as well. And also, I would say that the last sentence, the official spoke on condition of anonymity, is not necessary in order to understand the main idea.